Hey everybody, this is the summer program. This is day 9 and we are focused on video 1 of 3 on the topic of public goods, common access resources, and other market failures. Now if you look at my title, Public Goods and Common Access Resources, I didn't put that last part just because I couldn't fit it, but again, the title for day 9, Public Goods, Common Access Resources, and other market failures. Now the market failure that we've mainly looked at this point in the class have been externalities. However, of course, there are other market failures. But before I go any further, let's make sure we know the definition of that term market failure. A market failure is a situation that if we leave a market alone, if we do not intervene at all, that the market will fail to achieve max social surplus. You can see that word fail showing up in the definition, right? So market failure, we leave the market alone, the market will fail to achieve maximum social surplus. Now, the type of market failure we're going to be focused on in this video has to do with these things called public goods, okay? The market is very bad at providing what economists call public goods. And we're going to be looking at a particular example of a public good. But before I get into it, I want to define 2 terms that I think might be helpful. Now I want you to know the next video is going to talk about these terms again, so if you don't fully get them, that's okay. But let me at least introduce them to you. The first one is non-excludable, okay? If a good or service is non-excludable, that means we cannot exclude others from consuming the good. We can't exclude them from consuming it. Normally what we think about for most goods is we definitely can exclude them, and that allows us to put a price on the good. We say, hey, you have to pay this price to get this good, because that's the normal way we think of goods. They are excludable in our mind, right? That allows us to put the price. However, for some goods, they're not excludable. We can't prevent people from consuming the good. Now, the other one is non-rivalrous. Now, for non-rivalrous, what we're saying here is when a good is consumed, can somebody else consume that exact same good? If somebody else can consume that exact same good, it is a non-rivalrous good. Another way to talk about non-rivalrous goods is to say, hey, when somebody consumes a good, do we need additional resources for somebody else to consume that good, okay? So that's non-rivalrous. Okay, now let's get to the specific example. The specific example of a public good we're going to look at in this video is a lighthouse, okay? It's the one that economists use probably the most often, a need for a lighthouse. So let me kind of set this up, okay? Assume that we have 1,000 boat owners who want to use a particular port. However, to use that port, there's a high probability that they will run aground if there is not a lighthouse, okay? So we need a lighthouse to ensure that they do not run aground. Now we're going to say the average benefit per boat or boat owner is $2,000. Not necessarily that it's $2,000 in cost to your boat if you do run aground, but basically I think about it this way. Maybe it's $20,000 in cost if you run aground to get your boat to be free from running aground and then fix the boat. Maybe it's going to be on average about $20,000, but we'll say the probability without a lighthouse of running aground is 10%. So that's how we're getting this 2,000. It's not for sure you're going to run aground if there's not a lighthouse, but maybe there's a 10% probability you will. So we take that 10% times the 20,000, 2,000 average benefit per boat owner. Next, the cost of the lighthouse. If we do provide a lighthouse, it's going to cost $500,000, okay? So let's get into the actual details. First thing, what is the marginal cost, okay, of providing a lighthouse? Another way to say this is, what's the marginal cost of providing the services of a lighthouse to an additional boat owner? And the answer is 0, right? Once we've provided the lighthouse, there is no additional cost to provide it to anybody else. In other words, once we've provided the lighthouse or the services of the lighthouse to a single boat owner, there is no additional cost to provide it to anybody else. The concept of non-rivalrous should come up when we talk about this particular question. Next, the big problem. What's the big problem? It is non-excludable. That's right. Once we erect the boathouse and we've got that light going around, everybody can benefit from that light. We can't exclude anybody from seeing the light in the lighthouse. That's the biggest problem here, okay? Because if it's non-excludable, it's going to be very hard to get people to voluntarily pay for this good, okay? What we're going to see here is we have a free rider problem. People are going to want this lighthouse to be built for sure, but once built, they're going to want to free ride. They're not going to want to ever pay because they know they cannot be excluded from the benefits of this lighthouse. Now, possible solution. In this situation where we have non-excludable good and non-rivalrous good, that's what makes it a public good to an economist, okay? And again, these are types of market failures. Non-excludable, non-rivalrous goods. Those goods that fit these two things are absolutely mean that good is a market failure. The market left alone is going to fail to achieve max social surplus. So what is the possible solution? Well, when it comes to public goods, the big one is we need to act collectively. Oftentimes we'll look for the government to do it, but it doesn't have to be the government, but that's oftentimes what we're going to look for. Basically, we at least need these boat owners to act collectively, okay? They must say, hey, to dock at this port, you're going to need this sticker that says that you have paid for the cost of docking at this port, or whatever it is. You're going to need this license, this type of permit, whatever it is. We're going to say, hey, we got to act collectively here. To use this port, you're going to need this thing. So again, oftentimes we think of the way to act collectively is through a government. The government can say, to access this port, you must have this permit. If you don't, you're going to incur a fine. A way to make them pay for accessing that port, okay? So the big solution for public goods is we need to act collectively. Now, finally, the deadweight loss at the Lighthouse is not built. Remember, again, this is a market failure, right? We're not going to achieve max social surplus, okay? And let me define deadweight loss one more time, too. A deadweight loss is the amount by which we fall short of max social surplus, okay? The deadweight loss is the amount we fall short of max social surplus. So what is our maximum social surplus? Well, here's how we do it. We take the $2,000 average benefit times the 1,000 boat owners. That gives us $2 million in benefit, okay? Now, that's not our surplus, right? That's just our benefit. So $2 million in benefit. The Lighthouse, $500,000. So that's the cost. So we're going to take our benefit minus our cost. $1.5 million in surplus is what we have a chance at. That's our societal surplus, $1.5 million. Guys, if we don't build that lighthouse, that means we're losing out on that $1.5 million in surplus, okay? So the deadweight loss, $1.5 million. Again, this is an example of a public good, which is a situation we need to act collectively in some way or another to provide that good, because that good will not be provided if we leave the market alone. And the number one reason, because of that free rider problem, because we cannot exclude people from consuming the good once it's provided. Anyhow, hope that made sense to you. We'll see you in the next video.